You're listening to the Connected Health Podcast, where we bring together the science of functional health, the strategy of sustainable habits, and the wisdom of your body to help you feel vibrant, strong, and empowered. I'm your host, Vanessa Cohn, integrative health practitioner, nutrition coach, and personal trainer, and I own Connected Habits Coaching, and we help men and women heal from the inside out using personalized strategies rooted in hormone health, metabolism, nervous system support, and root cause healing. Today, we've got a special guest episode, and I can't wait for you to tune in. Today on the Connected Health Podcast, I have someone very special to me, my aunt, Amy Rieselman. She's here to talk about acupuncture and everything. So, Amy, tell us what you do, where you work out of, and how you got into this field.
Vanessa, what a pleasure. What an honor. So, my name is Amy Cohn Rieselman, and I have been practicing holistic health and holistic medicine for over 20 years now. I'm based in Naperville, Illinois, outside of Chicago in the suburbs. And I got into this. It's a kind of a cool story, I guess. I'd graduated college and didn't really know what I was doing. And I happened to be in Portland, Oregon at the time. And if you know anything about the West Coast, you know that they've been into holistic stuff a little bit longer than the Midwest. And so I went into the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And they had a Chinese medicine department there. And I went into the student clinic as a patient because I had Crohn's disease at the time and had just come off of medications, cold turkey, not that long before, maybe, less than a year before probably. And, was dealing with some stuff post getting off of meds and post Crohn's. I was already in remission, but it was more like other things going on. And so went into the student clinic, became a patient. And I just remember leaving there and just kind of being like, I can totally see myself doing that. I was like, okay, I don't think I could see myself doing anything else, because that's the way I remember looking at it. Like, I can't see myself doing anything else, but I can totally see myself doing that. And it just lit a big light bulb on my head like this, beep, beep, beep. And the rest is history. From there, I enrolled in school at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. Ended up not going there, long story. And then ended up going back to Chicago and trained at the Midwest College of Oriental Medicine. So I do have a degree in acupuncture and herbal medicine. And then continuing ed ever since. So lots of continuing ed over 20-something years. So, yeah.
So, we've had a little bit of an introduction to acupuncture through episodes ago about it. So, you can just give us a refresher on what acupuncture is and maybe even more about the herbs, because we did not get into that in the last episode.
Yeah, so Chinese medicine is a system of 8 modalities. So acupuncture is one of the 8. Herbal medicine is another one. And then there's a whole bunch of other things, right? It's like cupping, gua sha, moxibustion, qigong, nutrition, etc. When I start naming them, I don't like to stop naming them. But so acupuncture, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting and fun to think about all the different ways to think about it. So we're actually inserting little tiny stainless steel one-time use filaments, I guess you could call them, little sharp needles, sharp so they can go through the skin, into the body at specific access points. We call those acupuncture points. I think of them as access points. And what they're accessing is the rivers of energy in the body. So, a blood vessel is kind of like a river, right? A lymph vessel, all of that. It's a container filled with fluid. So acupuncture is accessing rivers of qi. Qi is not a fluid, it's an energy. It's a function also, and it's a movement. So when we think of movement, you can't see it, right? But it's happening and it's there. Air, you can't really see air, but it's happening and it's there. So qi, you can't see it, but it's a total dynamic in the body and everywhere in the universe. And we have rivers of it in the body that have been mapped out over thousands of years. And with these special access points, they have different functions. So acupuncture is using these access points to manipulate the energy in the body and to support the body's own healing, because we obviously are beautiful, created organisms with our own system of keeping things in regulation, aka homeostasis. It's about everything doing its thing so that we can function. And when that gets off track, there's blockages, which can happen for a wide variety of reasons. I'm sure you can imagine a few. If you want to name a few, what do you think can cause things to get blocked up in your body?
Stress is huge.
Yes, exactly. Stress, environmental toxins, poor diet, etc. Emotions that don't get processed fully, right? In Chinese medicine, we actually say emotions cause disease. So, lots of other people have kind of proven that to be true.
Yes.
Over the many millennia. So with the acupuncture, we're just assisting the body's own healing. And the cool thing about acupuncture is I say it induces a relaxation state. So you're laying there on a table. You should hopefully be on a nice, comfortable table. My patients love that my beds are heated. They all go crazy. And then I have these lamps that keep their feet toasty warm. Everybody likes to be warm. Warmth is life, cold is death, we say. So you lay there, and I usually start with ear points. The ear points, auriculotherapy, so the ear is a microsystem of the whole body. And a lot of the points in the ear are really good for the nervous system and regulating the nervous system. So I use those to just set the tone, get them a little bit more relaxed, and then we can do body points. And then they lay there and they relax with the needles in for 20 to 30 minutes, a little bit shorter for children. And what happens is most people usually every time get very relaxed. Many people fall asleep because it's inducing a relaxation state. I believe it induces the alpha wave state in the brain, which is kind of like the between awake and asleep state. And that's a place where our body's own healing mechanisms can take over. So your body starts doing its healing thing when you're laying there. And when I take the needles out, it's still going on. So the treatment is still continuing after we remove the needles. And then, it's kind of like when we go to bed at night, our body's doing a lot of healing. So that's why sleep is so important. But yeah, so to answer your question about acupuncture, there's your refresher.
Amazing. Thank you. That'll be helpful for people. I wanted to ask you about acupuncture and Chinese medicine and hormone imbalances. How do we get them rebalanced?
When we talk about hormones, usually we're talking to women starting at puberty, which can happening younger and younger these days. The normal age or the traditional age to go into puberty is 14, because in Chinese medicine, we talk about cycles of 7 years. 7 times 2 is 14. So that's when you begin your fertility with your menstrual cycle beginning. I don't want to leave out the men here and the boys either. They have hormones, of course, but my focus and my practice is mostly female hormones because that's more complicated. I do treatment as well, but focusing on women and girls, it takes a little bit of learning time for the body to kind of figure out, for some people, how to cycle properly when you're young. It doesn't always start out smooth and perfect and monthly. And that's why a lot of girls do go on birth control pill. Their moms and doctors trying to help them. And that's the answer that conventional medicine provides. Chinese medicine, I would approach it much differently if I had a young person come in wanting to avoid birth control who was having problems with their periods. So that's part of what I do. And then all through the menstrual cycle of a woman, Chinese medicine works with all the kinks that can happen. Dysmenorrhea is painful periods. Amenorrhea is when you skip more than 3 months of a period. And then other menstrual problems, PMS, PMDD, things like that. So all of those can be helped with Chinese medicine. When most people in modern times want to start having babies is 20s and 30s. Some people in their 40s wait until they're in their 40s to begin their families or to start thinking about it. Really, fertility is peaking when you're young and it starts to wane as you get older because we're born with all the eggs in our ovaries. So our eggs are in our bodies already when we're inside our mothers. And so our eggs, they're sitting there, and we normally are going to ovulate once a month. That's what we're supposed to do. Ovulate once a month at the middle of the cycle. You get your menstrual period if you don't get pregnant, right? Perimenopause is what happens as our fertility does start to wane. Menopause happens late 40s through mid 50s, naturally and normally, because 7 times 7 is 49. So that's when traditional end of fertility would be. End of fertility would be at 7 times 7 equals 49. So all the way up until 49, of course, there's always a bell curve around everything, right? But that would be the end of fertility. So perimenopause is the time when your body starts changing as you approach menopause. Menopause is defined as 1 year after your last period. Okay, so perimenopause, though, it's not just that 1 year period between the last period and the 1 year after. It can start earlier. And the way we define perimenopause is just changes to the menstrual cycle that are caused by a fluctuation of estrogen and overall decline in progesterone.
So you just defined those 3 stages. Do you want to go into how you would treat each stage?
Yeah, I'm passionate about the perimenopause and the fertility, so we could kind of talk about one or the other or both. It's up to you.
I think both issues are important to discuss. So why don't we go talking about the most common symptoms of perimenopause that people come to you for and how you work with that?
Okay. So perimenopause is kind of all the rage in social media right now. Everybody's freaking out. I don't know why it wasn't before. It just seems to be more prominent and trending more in social media over the past year or two, I would say. Maybe it's just a lot more people my age that are like, this isn't right. And I get patients that come to me thinking I think it's perimenopause, and they're like 39. I'm like, no, let's just, work on your period. This is just hormonal imbalance. So there's a difference between hormonal imbalance, other things, and perimenopause. So you need to have an educated, trained practitioner to kind of sort through what's going on in your body. But a lot of things with perimenopause that are very disruptive and disconcerting for women is the big one that comes to mind is insomnia or sleep disturbances, waking at 3 a.m., waking up throughout the night, not sleeping well. That's a big deal because then that cascades and turns into all kinds of other things: mood disturbances, irritability, anxiety, because everything declines if you're not sleeping, right? So that's a big one. Changes in your period and your menstrual cycle. You could skip months. You could have extra heavy periods. You could have more pain. Some women do flood, which is menorrhagia, which is excessive menstrual bleeding. That can happen. Other things, the skipping the periods because you're not ovulating regularly anymore. And these are some of the key signs that tell you that you're in perimenopause. Sometimes it's more fatigue. Some women complain of weight gain around the abdomen or losing muscle. So all of these are results of these changes in the estrogen and the progesterone. I can give you an example from my practice. I always forget she told me this, but since age 45, she was having issues with her menstrual cycle. And it got to the point where she could barely leave her house. She would miss work a lot. She was having flooding, so excessive menstrual bleeding, and she would just bleed out. And this was going on for years. And she goes to the doctors, and she even went to another acupuncturist, and nobody seemed to be able to help her. And she was just so frustrated. And somehow she came to me. She hadn't given up on herself. I'm so happy. She's like, these doctors are not helping me. I don't want the options that they're giving me. It was probably a uterine ablation. Maybe someone even told her hysterectomy. Those are some of the conventional solutions offered. A birth control pill. I think those would be the 3 things to control flooding the doctors would offer. And some women don't want that. To the women who choose that, that's their choice. And it works for some people, right? But people who come to me for help are looking for another answer. And happily, we were able to get the bleeding under control. It's been under control for I don't know how many months now. She's already had a couple of normal periods. She's like, oh my God, this period was so beautiful. It was like when I was in my 30s. It's like freaking out. So that's, an example. And I did incorporate moxibustion for her. So I do use moxibustion to control bleeding. It's fabulous. I love it. It doesn't seem to have any side effects as far as I can tell in my practice and my experience. I make sure that women aren't doing too much or too little and making sure it fits their constitution as well. But with this patient, it really, really helped. This patient refused to take my herbs, but so we were able to still help her. We use homeopathy as well when people don't want to take herbs. There's a lot of things we can do. So the hot flashes, I know people talk about the hot flashes and night sweats. It's a big disruption. And that's another thing that contributes to poor sleep. And that's again due to too much estrogen, not enough progesterone, and it fluctuating up and down. So the hot flashes come and go. A lot of women will have hot, cold flashes. They'll get very hot and then very cold. It's very uncomfortable. night sweats, it's really not a good thing to have that continue on, because when we say you're sweating too much, we say that's losing yin and yang. You're losing fluids and you're losing heat from the body, and it's just very depleting. So those are things that are important to not let get too severe and continue on too long. And that I usually will do acupuncture and herbal medicine, and then we'll do, see what else needs to happen as far as nutrition, lifestyle. Of course, I always pay attention to all the factors in a person's life. What are their relationships like? What are they eating? Are they on their phone all night and then try to fall asleep? Things like that. So it's very, very holistic. Acupuncture and herbal medicine are those extra things that sometimes are very useful for managing these symptoms and helping to create more balance with the hormones and not have it be so dramatic.
What about fertility? What are your methods for fertility treatment?
Fertility is really fun. Nowadays, IVF is a very common thing, especially here where I live, maybe probably by you as well. And it's been a wonderful option for people for the past, 30 or 40 years, maybe even longer. And I'll see patients who are either trying to conceive naturally or are doing IVF and want acupuncture to assist that and improve their outcomes, because outcomes fluctuate depending on your age, all the other factors that are involved with the diagnosis of infertility for that person or that couple. Male factor infertility is huge. I want to say like 40% of infertility involves male factor. Maybe it's more, maybe it's 50%. Ideally, I see the female and male partners. And then there are couples that are same sex and are doing IVF for that reason. Of a patient who had an infection in her fallopian tubes, had both fallopian tubes removed. And so she is doing IVF because can't get that fertilized egg into the uterus without the fallopian tube. So it's all different reasons why people do IVF. And then there's a lot of people that just feel like, I have another patient who feels like it's just not right for her. A lot of her friends, family say, why don't you just do IVF? Why don't you just, and she's just like, it's just not right for me. It just doesn't feel good in my soul to go that route. And she's willing to do the natural route. And sometimes for some people, it can take longer. It's amazing to me how fast it can turn it around. And then there's some people who haven't been diagnosed with infertility. So I didn't even explain infertility is when you've been trying to conceive for 6 months if you're over the age of 35, and 1 year if you're under the age of 35 and you haven't conceived. There's also recurrent miscarriages when you can conceive, but you can't hold the pregnancy, which kind of falls into this category of fertility challenges. But like I said, some people come to Chinese medicine because they just want to optimize their health in order to not have to get to that point. And I love that. I just had a consult with a potential patient yesterday who was referred to me, was just starting her fertility journey. Maybe she got married a little later, and maybe for whatever reasons, she's a little later in life, hasn't been diagnosed with infertility because she hasn't started trying to conceive yet. She knows she wants to be holistic about it. She wants to just optimize her health. We talked about optimizing her partner as well, so that you could just create that best nest possible in your body. Healthy mommy and healthy daddy makes a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby in general, right? So there are things that we can do to optimize our fertility. But I do work with a lot of women and couples who have been diagnosed with infertility. I've had some fun success stories. I really love working with unexplained infertility because, they go through all the testing. They see reproductive endocrinologists, if they've been trying to conceive for that time frame where they get the diagnosis of infertility. And they're told, well, all your numbers look good. We don't know why you can't get pregnant, is literally what my patients tell me that their doctors tell them. I'm like, okay, great, let's go, because Chinese medicine is going to look at things that they're not looking at. We can see the subtleties and all the nuances in the complexity of the human organism that they aren't looking at, right? I'm looking at emotional stress. I'm looking at relationships. I'm looking at environmental factors. I'm looking at digestion's a big one. Not sleeping, exercising too much, eating too little. All of these things can factor in. And digestion has turned out to be kind of a key thing with some of my clients. And then just the patterns that we see in Chinese medicine that aren't necessarily recognized in other systems of medicine, but that I can recognize and treat with acupuncture and herbal medicine, just unkink those energy blockages and imbalances, which allows for better flow. And that's really what it's all about, getting the flow going and having your vital force unobstructed, because everyone should have some fertility.
Did you share a patient success story? I want my listeners to know that there's hope even in infertility, because that's a really tricky topic, heartbreaking for some people.
It's super deep. It's super painful. Yeah. And it's like one of those challenges some people get in life. And it's like, why? Well, it's not for us to ask why, but it's for us to say, okay, what can we do now? So I've had a lot of fun success stories. Let's see. Well, the most fun, Lexi, she came and she already had a son, because we haven't talked about that either. It's not always the first time you're trying to get pregnant. The problems can arise. A lot of people will conceive easily with the first, and then they have a lot of trouble trying to have a second baby. And that was this person's issue. She was young, she was otherwise healthy. Doctors didn't know why she wasn't able to carry a pregnancy. She had a little boy, and she really wanted to give him a sibling, right? I think it's a lot of people's motivation, and they want to grow a family. And she had had a couple of miscarriages, and it was just really heart-wrenching. And her and her partner were considering IVF, but they wanted to give it some time. They wanted to try Chinese medicine. They had heard acupuncture can really help. So she came in and she's like, okay, I'll tell you, I have a little bit of time here to work with you before I try IVF. I'm like, okay, well, please give me 3 months, please, because I like to work with women through 3 menstrual cycles minimum, especially when you're talking about fertility stuff, because every month it's one cycle, right? Ideally. So 3 months is just really a minimum. And it's like, okay, let's slow down. I know you wanted your baby day before yesterday, but let's work on you first, you know? This used to stress me out earlier in my practice, I will say. I used to get stressed out with that. Women, it's like, okay, I want a baby now. I want a baby yesterday. And it's like, okay, well, slow down and just give your body some time to get through these challenges and to heal and repair. So she worked with me, and within 2 months, I think maybe she had not more than 2 periods with me. And then she's like, yeah, I didn't get my period. And yeah, I had a positive test. She did the treatment plan. And I will tell you, my success stories are mostly women who are really sticking with it. You know, they're coming in every week, they're taking my advice, they're trusting me, and they're sticking with the treatment plan, which is usually at least once a week for, like I said, at least 3 months. Sometimes there's more things involved. Like I said, sometimes we incorporate herbal medicine. This patient, we did incorporate herbal medicine. She seemed overall healthy to me, but I can feel things in the pulses. I can put a picture together. And I was like, I think there's just some blockage in the digestion. The digestion's not perfect. Well, let's try and make it more perfect, because that can actually really contribute to fertility. It sounds weird. And I don't know how much medical doctors will agree with me here, but it's true, because in Chinese medicine, our digestive system is basically, and in modern medicine, there's a tube going from the mouth to the anus, right? So we see that as this special tube where things are going through, and it needs to be open through. We say energy comes in, food comes in, and then it goes down and out, right? So, and then there's everything else that goes around this tube, all our other organs and everything. So part of the tube is your stomach, your intestines, etc., right? So we can see in Chinese medicine there's blockages here, and we can do things to alleviate that and to help things move and to help relax the digestive system and strengthen it. So we just did a little bit of that with her. And like I said, within 2 months, I always love letting myself get amazed. I know how powerful this stuff is, but I like, a lot of the fun for me is just being like, what? And then she comes in and she's like, yeah, it's twins. I'm like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, cute joke. She's like, I'm serious. I was like, are you kidding me? There was just a really fun surprise. And seriously, she's going into her third trimester now, and babies are doing great, healthy, growing really well. And yeah, so that's been a fun success story.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
And
That
she had
must
been
be.
trying, yeah, she had been trying for a year and a half. So, I mean, that's definitely, why is someone that young who had already had a baby not able to get pregnant and carry a baby? So, yeah, it was really beautiful. She's doing great.
That's really sweet.
Well, you wanted to talk more about herbs. Oh, okay.
We could
So
do
we didn't
that.
talk much about that.
Okay. Herbs. The only one I know is like dong quai for perimenopause.
Yeah, so herbs. Oh my gosh, I love my herbs. They're all like little personalities and people to me. Kind of like cats and dogs. They each have their own personality. So do herbs.
Okay, tell us more.
Yes, a lot of herbalists probably feel the same way as I do because they have energies, they have properties, they have flavors, they have consistencies, and they have signatures. So you mentioned dongwei. So it's a beautiful, amazing, beautiful herb. Oh my gosh, I love her so much. And she's translucent and she's got like this moisture to her. And what dongwei does is nourishes the blood and moves the blood. There's a head and a tail. So it's just a beautiful herb. And back in school and early in my herbal years, we would use the head and the tail separately sometimes, depending on what we wanted to do. Now, the style of herbal medicine I do now, we don't use like a separate, we just use the whole thing. And it's really, really important for nourishing blood because a lot of women have blood deficiency. And I'm not talking just anemia here, according to your blood work. It's a pattern that we can sense in Chinese medicine called blood deficiency. And then there's blood stagnation, another big deal that impedes good health. Dangui is appropriate for both of these situations when used appropriately. And the fun thing about herbs too is like they're all like friends and cousins. It's like a little village of people working together to get a job done, right? That's an herbal formula. In the style of medicine I practice, we don't just use one herb. That's more common, I think, in Western herbalism, where they just say, oh, just take astragalus, which is feng qi in Chinese medicine, or just take dongui. But we use them in formulas that have been written and used and time tested for literally thousands of years. The formulas I use were written in the Han Dynasty, and the master, Zhang Zhongjing, he wrote the Shang Han Zabinglan. So it's these canons of knowledge of really human health, physiology, and medicine with all the herbal formulas, how to use them, when to use them. It's cryptic because it was written in the 220s, 240s AD. So my teachers always talk about like, you have to learn how to think like a Han Dynasty physician. So yeah, that's like the whole premise of it because in order to understand it. But anyways, it's been carried on century after century, and these formulas have been used consistently and safely by trained people. So I get really passionate, excited about that because it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's everywhere in the world where people have lived, there's been medicine all around them in the plants, in the roots, in the minerals, in the animals too. There are some bugs in Chinese medicine, which I don't use often because they are used for more severe cases of things, but they're used sometimes and they're very effective. There's not so many animal products anymore, but there are some. That's easy to customize and make things vegan for sure because most herbs are plant material or minerals. And the way I determine formulas is not just based on symptoms, but it's also based on the pulse. So I feel people's pulses. And when I say pulses, I'm talking about 3 positions here where the fingers line up like that, and then 3 positions here. So I'm feeling the pulses and I'm trying to kind of see like, okay, this feels like this kind of herb and that kind of herb and this kind of formula. And you combine that with the symptoms to come up with some good possible formulas. So some of my fertility patients and perimenopause patients, we could talk about that with herbal medicine because so many times it's what we call a Xiaoyang imbalance. This is what I like to explain to my patients. I'm like, okay, you have a Xiaoyang imbalance. Well, what does that mean? That sounds like Chinese. It is. So I will stand up here so you could see. So we're talking about the diaphragm here. This is the muscle that goes and sits underneath the lungs and on top of the liver. It's a super special organ. I consider it an organ. It's a muscle and it's a common place for energetic blockage. Okay. So you've got the liver there too, right? And where do people hold their stress, right? A lot of people hold their stress here. A lot of people hold their stress in their stomachs, which is in that same area too. A lot of people just tighten up their core and don't even notice when they're not breathing. So that's what you can think of when you're thinking of like a Xiaoyang disharmony, this energetic blockage that can happen in our middle. So let's take hot flashes, for example. So this is the way I explain it to people. It's also hot flashes and insomnia, anxiety, headaches, anger, these kinds of things are all what we call energy coming up and out that is supposed to be going in and down. Because when energy comes into the body, it comes in and down. And when it hits this energetic blockage, what happens? It bounces back up. Okay. And it is going to harass the mind. We say so you can get all these kind of head symptoms. And when it's bad, I will feel the pulse coming above the wrist crease, meaning like the wrist crease is like analogous to the neck. So I can feel when someone's thinking too much, has too much stress, too much going on in the head. So these symptoms, such as hot flashes, can be energy coming up and out when it's supposed to be going in and down. And what's the other thing that happens if you have this energetic blockage? What's happening below the blockage? You're having a lack of energy, a lack of flow, and everything's blocked off and cut off. So then you can have all these symptoms that happen for women in that reproductive area, our ovaries and uterus, which is our main thing down there. You also got your kidneys with the adrenal glands sitting on top that are all below this area where we get blocked up. And so you could see there's this total imbalance, really, too much above and not enough below. And this leads to so many symptoms. So this one explanation explains so much. So I love detecting this, especially oftentimes it will be this middle pulse over here will be a good indicator that we have a Xiaoyang disharmony, but all of these symptoms too. And it could be things wrong with the eyes, the ears, the throat. These are all other signs of a Xiaoyang disharmony. Xiaoyang also refers to the wood element in Chinese medicine. If we want to really start geeking out, we could go on and on. The wood elements, liver, gallbladder. So things like anger and resentment are going to contribute to this kind of a blockage. A lot of us don't even realize we have these suppressed emotions. Also, suppressed emotions can contribute to this block and cause it. So acupuncture and then herbs that address this type of pattern are super effective for helping, especially women in perimenopause, because this is a time where we're especially going to be more sensitive to this type of energetic imbalance.
Whoa, I learned so much right there.
I love talking about that because it's such a big, cool thing that isn't acknowledged in conventional medicine, but it's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, when you just explain it in these simple, natural terms, that's the beauty of Chinese medicine too, and acupuncture. It's just, it's all about nature and how do we get explained by nature? So
Yeah, it makes total sense because
makes a
we
lot of
mirror
sense.
nature. Yeah,
Why should we be separate from everything else around us, right? It doesn't make any sense. So
we're made of the same
yes.
thing. Towards the end there, you were explaining anger, resentment, emotions, and how emotions can be affected. And I wanted to talk about emotional blockages and how you treat that through NET.
Oh my gosh, neuro emotional technique. Okay. Neuro emotional technique is one of many different types of techniques. It's the one that I've gravitated towards and really enjoy doing in my practice. It brings me a lot of joy. And this is a way that we can address stuck stress and emotions in the body. So, emotional stress is what we say causes a lot of imbalance and blockage in the body, right? What is emotional stress? So, when we're little, there's little T traumas and big T traumas. Some people have had the big T traumas, and those are huge, right? But to a child, even a little T trauma can feel huge. I could give you an example. I've done a lot of NET on myself because all of us NET practitioners work on ourselves. I just came back from California where it was a Heal the Healer seminar, where that's what we do. We get together and work on each other, do NET on each other so that we can be better practitioners and refreshed for our patients and our clients. He is practiced by all different types of healthcare professionals, not just acupuncturists. It's actually founded by a chiropractor, but there's medical doctors, nurses, psychotherapists, acupuncturists. Yeah, a lot of different healthcare practitioners practice NET. So in its core, it's based on Chinese medicine principles. We do use the pulse points here because each one of these correlates to different organ systems, and each organ system has correlated and related emotions. So, for example, we talked about the wood element, the liver, gallbladder organs are in the wood element, and the emotions associated with this are anger, resentment, emotionally repressed, depressed, frustration, irrationality. Those are some of the emotions. Not to be exhaustive, but that's a lot of the key ones. And So when we have these emotions that are stuck, what happens is our body, if we have a trauma that happens, then our body's like, okay, this is too much. I can't deal with this. My nervous system is freaking out. So I'm just going to take this problem, this emotion, this stress, I'm going to stick it right here. And I'm going to stick it in my liver, or I'm going to stick it in my large intestine, or in my small intestine, or in my heart, or in my lungs, or in the back of my head, or on my hip. So anywhere in the body, we can have these emotions get stuck. So have you heard the term, my issues are in my tissues? That's the gist of it. It's true. Our issues are in our tissues. This is just how our physiology works. We have something that happens, our nervous system can't deal with it because we've got to survive, and that's more important. So it just stuffs these things down and we hold on to them in our bodies. So NET is one way of pinpointing these little chunks of stress, I call them, and releasing them and letting those emotions fully process. When it's healthy, when we're able to process an emotion, it comes, we feel it, and like a wave, it passes in, I believe it's supposed to be 60 to 90 seconds. And then that emotion has been processed and it's done. And we move on, right? I haven't met a single person who doesn't have a neuro emotional complex, meaning like stuck emotions and stuck stress in their body. So we all have this happening to us. It's normal, right? But it can affect us and it can hold us back. It can even hold us back from doing things that we want to do. It can create fears, phobias, different things, anxiety. So I do work with my patients and I incorporate this for perimenopause, for fertility, for everything. It applies to anything. Someone with this back pain that just won't go away, this neck pain that just won't go away. You have someone who's a pain in your neck? Probably. So things like that. But it's always about you. We always bring it back to you. What's the worst part about this for you? Why does this bother you? You can start talking about, oh, so-and-so bothers me, but no, what's this going on in you? And then we use a breathing technique to process the emotions. It's really beautiful, really simple, really effective. My patients will say they feel lighter after we do it. They feel better. And then a lot of times they're just able to just move on with these things in their life that they weren't able to. And little things, physical things resolve easier as well. Any chronic physical problem has an emotional component. Any chronic emotional stress problem has a physical component. I did not come up with that. One of my teachers said that, and I just always remembered ever since. That is so cool. That's totally true. So
Very cool. So what does an NET session look like? I mean, I can talk about how you worked on me recently if you want me to.
yeah, let's talk about that. So that was back pain that wasn't going away, right?
Yeah, I had it from an injury from last year, and I've done the chiropractic, I've done the PT, but it just was lingering pain, and you worked on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example, Vanessa, because you're young, you're healthy, you take care of yourself. Why isn't this pain going away? Pain's not normal, and we should never just live with pain. It's your body saying, yo, something's up here, right? Pay attention, figure this out. And so NET is, yeah, it was perfect, I think. And we did find emotions and stress stuck in your back. We might have checked another point or two. There's different reflex points on the body that we can use. That's my little question mark shape that I do. I don't know. One of them, I always will start with this one. There's one, we say 5 o'clock in the right breast. That's the allergy point. So there's different points on the body we can use to scan and see if there's emotional stress stuck there. And we use the technique for that. And I think we probably started that way for you. We just started touching different points on the body and we touched the pain spot. Put your hand where it hurts, and then I use the other arm for the muscle test. So this involves muscle testing, which is used in applied kinesiology and by AK practitioners, but anybody can use it in their practice, any person who wants to use muscle testing. So we use the arm usually because we're using the deltoid as the test muscle. And if something is congruent, the test should be strong and the arm shouldn't go down. If something is incongruent, then the arm goes weak. Okay, so it's like holding up a chunk of lead against your body. Your arm should go weak because your body should react to that lead as a poison. If we hold up something that's good for you, maybe some kind of a food that's really nourishing for your body, and that should be strong, for example. So you put your hand on your back, and it was either strong or weak, I don't remember, and we did the muscle test to find out. And then we said, okay, let's add a hand to your forehead because we're covering the emotional points here. And so when we combine those two spots, if there's a change of strength, it doesn't even matter if the back is strong to start or weak to start. If there's a change of strength, we know that there's some emotions affecting this part of the body or some stress affecting this part of the body. And then in NET, we always ask permission every time because we want to make sure, do you want to check this out? If you say yes, we continue with the technique. So I'm curious, like didn't talk too much after that. So what happened after we did the NET? Did you notice any changes?
So, right after, I think we released two emotions. It was resentment and frustration. Right after, my back pain was like 80% better, which was insane. And then there were also
Wow.
some homeopathic remedies that you gave me, and I have been using them. I think they're almost gone now, but under the tongue,
Yeah.
talking about, yeah, talk about those remedies. Talk about, sometimes how quickly the pain can leave or how lighter people feel. I don't know. Is it
Yeah.
commonly something that happens quickly, or does it take a day or two?
Yeah. I will put needles in and say, okay, where's the pain now? And people will be like, oh, yeah, it moved or it's gone. Yeah. So acupuncture can be instant and neuroemotional technique can be instant too, where you feel a big difference. Is it going to be always 100% gone? Not always, sometimes, but usually it'll be greatly improved. But it's because there's other things involved. It can take time to peel away the layers, of like, okay, now we have to check the ileocecal valve can be involved with back pain very, very often. And we could check for emotions in the ileocecal valve. Just for example, there's actually an entire protocol in neuroemotional technique for chronic low back pain that involves evaluating and addressing the ileocecal valve in combination with a series of other reflex points, many of which are the gut, but are also other organs. And a lot of times it's all this stress stuck in the kidney, the gallbladder, parts of the bowel, allergy point. There's all these different things that actually relate to that. So it's super fascinating. I could go on and on down the rabbit hole with this, but we won't because we don't have that much time. But yeah, so people do feel lighter. They'll feel like, oh, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, that feels so different. People like it. I've been told more than once. Wow, that was like 3 years of therapy in like half an hour, right? And it's like, wow, yeah, that's a pretty cool way to put it. Because for some people, the talk therapy, they go in circles with it and they're like, I'm so tired of talking about this because it's sometimes very stressful to just keep reliving their problems. NET, it's like, I'm not a psychotherapist, right? But we're going to just talk about it briefly. We're going to have your body go into the feeling of, we go back and we index for time. So if the first time you felt a certain way was when you were 3 years old, we're going to go back and have you be that 3-year-old and feel this like a 3-year-old, but you're going to look like this instead as you're doing it. I'm using 3 years old. That came to mind because a lot of my neuroemotional complexes happened when I was 3. I don't remember when I was 3, but it turns out I was really affected when your father, my brother, moved away. He was my big brother and he left. And I was, I guess, devastated because it caused some emotional blockage for me and that I just cleared up in my 40s. So I didn't know, but it was there. It was just super fascinating.
Yeah, like you said, you don't remember, but your body remembers, and your body holds on to that memory, the trauma. It might seem small to your adult version, but it really affected you back then, and it can still affect you now until you deal with it.
Exactly, exactly. I always feel like the earlier in the person's life we go back to the first time they had the emotion, the bigger the issue was for them, the deeper it was for them. I will tell you, there is a lot of these stressors that show up when you were in utero.
Hmm.
Okay, so this happens, we start from conception, and these emotions can be carried with you and be this pattern in your life. And it's like, you don't understand why, as an adult, you have this pattern in your life. And then you do NET and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was carrying that. I wasn't ready to be born, or I was angry about whatever. We can have emotions, from the very beginning. It's really super fascinating.
Yeah, I heard a story. One of my favorite podcasters had done something like this, and he learned that there was a pattern instilled from his mother when he was in the third trimester. So he called up his mom and he talked to her about it, and she told him this whole story about how she was feeling inadequate, and that just stuck with him into his adult years until he dealt with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so amazing. So
Yeah.
I just encourage everyone to just reflect on themselves and notice these patterns of anything where you're less than fully abundant and fully joyful. because our nature is to be fully abundant, fully joyful, and living our purpose. So anything that interferes with that, that's holding us back from that, kind of look at that and be like, what is this about? And just realize it's not really you or yours. And it doesn't have to be continued and carried forward. It can be released.
That's so good.
Bit by bit.
I know you're probably only local to Naperville, but if you want people to follow you on social media or if you do any online consults, you can share that with us.
Yeah, I do online if people want to do energy work with me, or if they just want like second opinions or just like holistic consultations. Yeah, if they resonate with me.
Yeah. How do people reach you for that?
Okay, my website's energyflowhealth.com. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. Where else can you find me? That's what comes to mind. Not on TikTok. Thank you very much. But yeah, and then office number 630-335-1069. But I love doing online work. Of course, it all started in 2020. And I found that, yeah, you could actually get a lot accomplished with distance healing. And I've been exploring more into that. I actually did another training just this last winter, working with actual frequencies. So just calling in frequencies and holding space. And it's been very effective for people as well. It can be really calming and soothing and nourishing for people. Yeah. And nutritional consultations, any kind of I want to run this by you kind of thing. I always offer a complimentary discovery call. If you just want to chat my ear off for 15 minutes, you're welcome to book that as well and see if I'd be someone you'd want to work with.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your wealth of information with us, your many years of experience. And do you want to leave the audience with any final words or a message?
Oh, goodness. Enjoy your summer, enjoy your life, and just cultivate that inner smile. Remember to breathe. And yeah, that's it.
So wonderful. Thanks for being on the Connected Health Podcast.
Thank you, Vanessa. My pleasure. I enjoyed it.